right, what's up? Welcome back to the One Degree podcast. I've got a guest I'm pretty excited for today. We just had a cool pre-interview chat and we're going to see where this conversation goes. So I'm here with Scott Sylvan Bell. He was in the corporate world teaching sales for about 15 years, transitioned into entrepreneurship, is now one of the two in the world advisors to the Abraham Group. He works directly with 𝐵𝐴braham, helping them with sounds like sales, system, structure, closing, you name it. So Scott, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
I love it. So give us a little backstory of how you got to where you are now.
Well, it all goes back to 2001. And I started in sales, and I was probably the 10th worst salesperson on the planet.
The 10th, not the 7th. But no, I like it.
No, I didn't want to start with number one. I didn't want that record. And so I was bad. I couldn't sell, I couldn't close. And so back then there were no podcasts, there was no YouTube. And so you think about what it took to train back then. You know, masterminds were not at the level that they are today. Mm-hmm. And so what I did was I dedicated between $100 and $200 a month to my training. I would buy books, and I would go to Barnes and Nobles, or I would go to Borders, and I would buy books on CD. Oh. And in between my drive time, I would listen to these books. When I got home at night, I would read. I was kind of a book nerd. And so, you know, I can disseminate information. That's what I'm really good at. Somebody gives me a whole bunch of information, and then I can take it and turn it into something. But back then I wasn't good at it. And so I would decide, do I go out with my friends? Do I buy books and CDs? And there was a lot of times that I said, nope, I'm sticking to it. I'm going to buy books and I'm going to buy CDs. And my friends are like, we're at the bar, you got to come over. You know, this is 21 years ago. So I'm 21 years younger. I'm in my mid 20s. And I just took that dedication as far as I could. You know, I bought courses. As soon as like 2005, 2006 came around, that was the boom of gurus, I'm going to say. You know, there was something about that time in the internet marketing world where it became more prolific to teach. So I started buying up as much training as I could get, absorbing everything that I could.
Very cool. And so that was leading to your corporate career, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And what was the transition that moved you out of that?
No, there was only so long that I wanted to do what I was doing. Oh. And I have this thing where I get bored. You know, I'm like, you know, that shiny thing over there looks really cool. And that shiny thing over there even looks even cooler. And then that shiny thing, you know, in every job that I've had, I've trained people somehow or somewhat. Hey, go work with Scott. He'll help you out. He'll get you sorted out.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
And the whole premise of the show, which you know, is what's the one connection, the one person that changed the trajectory of your business, your life. So who would you say that one person is for you, and give us the whole story behind it?
Probably my father.
Oh,
cool. And so, yeah, I come from a family of entrepreneurs.
Okay.
And you know, growing up as a kid, I did not have a normal childhood like everybody else does. Right. When you come from a family of entrepreneurs, it means you work a lot.
Right.
And my grandfather was a dentist, and he was a top dentist for income earners. And in the mid 90s, he ran into this guy named 𝐵𝐴braham. So when I was a kid, the family would get together and talk about business. It's like on Thanksgiving, like, you know, people are like, let's talk about sports. No. At my family, we talked about split testing, advertising, you know, how do you make things happen, new ideas, risk reversal. And I would go to friends' houses on the holidays, and they're like, well, let's go watch a college football game. I'm like, no, let's talk about marketing tactics and strategies. Like, who are you? What is this stuff that you're talking about? And so my dad started businesses, had businesses until his passing, and he was a huge influence on my life. And, you know, my dad was a rule breaker as well. And he said, look, I'm going to do things my way. And a lot of times you'll hear entrepreneurs say, I can't work for other people because I tend to break the rules and do things the way that I want to.
Right.
Yeah.
Very cool. So what were some of the things that your dad What were some of the things your dad showed you that you think made the biggest impact on your life?
You know, my dad, I'm going to give you an answer that may surprise you. My dad was always willing to lend a helping hand to somebody.
Oh, cool.
And so like at his funeral, there was 1,500 people that showed up. The building was packed. There was standing room only. Everybody knew my dad. So when somebody was in trouble, they called him. Hey, I need business advice. Hey, what would you do in this given situation? And you know, the contacts that he had and the people that he interacted with were deep. And it was the ability to have the conversations. Now, for me, I don't know how to sugarcoat. It's taken a while for me to learn how to, like, maybe I shouldn't say it that way. And my brain pauses. So like, if you see me pause for a second, it's probably because my brain's going, don't say it that way. But, you know, he had genuine connections with people. And if somebody needed help, he would give it to them.
That's really neat you say that. Before I became an entrepreneur, I worked for John Benson for 2 years.
Yeah.
I was his EA. And he, if you don't know who that is, he's a legendary copywriter. And
I know John.
Yeah. No, for the listeners, right?
Oh.
Yeah, you're not the only one here, Scott. Okay. No, I'm joking.
Welcome. I thought everything was all about me today.
I know, right? No, so legendary copywriter, and I was his executive assistant for 2 years before I kicked off on my own. And it was really cool because I'd never worked that closely with an entrepreneur before. Best training for entrepreneurship ever. Go work for a successful one. And we lived not full time, but we worked out of his penthouse, traveled together. Like I spent 2 years with John.
That would be pretty cool.
It was really cool. And like legit, I didn't know what Zoom was when I started. Like I should not have gotten that job, but I got introduced to him through a friend of a friend, and I learned quickly and our personalities clicked and off we go. Right. But so I was there for, you know, every call that came in, every whatever. And I can tell you everything except for focused work calls was like, John, thank you so much for helping me out that one time. I just super appreciate you, man. What are you up to? Like, hey, we really, really appreciate what you did for us 5 years ago. And if there was one thing, well, there was several things, but one thing that I really took away from that time period was do right by people. Yeah. It was one of those things where I was like, wow, this guy has really built very deep relationships and people who just adore him because of something he did 5-10 years ago, or just being, like you said, being willing to really just lend a helping hand.
Yeah. I've got a huge love for John Benson. Like, give him the heart emoji, right?
Yeah.
At the height of COVID, yeah, heart emoji, whatever you call that thing. At the height of COVID, I was the heaviest I ever was. And I was in his Copy Pro classes. So I reached out to him and said, John, you wrote Fit Over 40.
Yeah.
You're going to tell me the truth. I'm the heaviest I've ever been. How do I fix my diet? And so he jumped on the phone with me, and, you know, we had already had a pre-existing relationship. I wasn't some random person off the street, but he took some time out and said, here's what you do. And it helped me lose 80 pounds. So it was like, I got tons of love for John Benson.
One thing a lot of people don't know about that, like I learned so much, obviously online marketing, et cetera, working for him. Copy, he really was the first person to teach me copy and kind of mentored me in that area. Yeah. But one thing a lot of people don't know about John, and we'll link him below, by the way, if you want to go check out his stuff. He's got a great YouTube channel now.
Oh yeah, I love his YouTube channel.
It's doing great. I know that it's awesome. But one thing a lot of people don't know about him is he is an encyclopedia when it comes to health. He knows every like how all the hormones work, if you want to gain muscle, lose fat, etc. He can give you a step-by-step. Like he's just an absolute encyclopedia. So super cool guy. But I want to do a little transition here. I definitely want to hear about how you got involved with the Abraham group. And with 𝐤𝐴braham, and if you don't know who 𝐤𝐴braham is, for the listener, Scott, no joking. Yeah. But no, if you don't know who 𝐤𝐴braham is, we'll link him below. He's pretty much he's a legend when it comes to marketing. And actually, a little funny story about Jay. When through Clubhouse, which is how we connected, I met David Deutsch back in the early days of Clubhouse. Oh, yeah. So David's David. Yeah, David's so lovely, right? Another legendary copywriter. So at one point, David reached out to me and was like, hey, I'm going to be bringing 𝐤𝐴braham onto Clubhouse. Would you mind hosting this room like with me? And so me and Jay don't have to bring people up. And I'm like, yeah, of course. So So before I host the room, I'm sort of like, man, I of course know who 𝐤𝐸𝐸 is, but I honestly don't really know what he does. Like, I don't know why I would hire him. So I did some digging before I hosted that room and looked into Jay's stuff. And one of the biggest takeaways I got just from spending 2 hours digging into his materials that were available online is his ability to take things from different industries and plug them in to like cross-pollinate different strategies that are working in real estate into marketing and working in et cetera. And a big effect I've never met him personally, but a big effect he's had on my life is I now actively go seek and go make relationships with people in completely different industries than I am. And I just listen to what they're doing. I see if there's something I can apply across the board. And so I have a really big respect for him and kind of a big, like, heartfelt thank you to him for opening my eyes to that. So tell us how you got involved with him and the type of work that you do there.
Sure. So we're gonna go back to the 90s when I was a child, right?
Yeah.
And I graduated from high school in 94. So, you know, in 1990, my grandfather handed me some books and some tapes, and he's like, Scott, you have the entrepreneurial spirit. I really want you to read these things. And I'm like, Grandpa, you know, this is business. I shouldn't be doing this. And so I went through the information and I started paying attention to what Jay was saying. Now, most entrepreneurs and most salespeople, if you ask them, they started their sales career when they were 8, 9, or 10 with either a paper route or doing something that had to do with sales. So my dad would tell me stories when he was a kid and he needed money. He would sell handfuls of M&M. He would go to the store and buy, you know, 6 and 12 packs of soda and then sell it at lunch. He would keep it in his trunk. And I'm like, Dad can do it. I can do it. So, you know, in 7th and 8th grade, I had a paper route. I would take that money and I'd go and buy candy. And this pertains to 𝐤𝐸𝐸, so I promise I'm getting there.
No, you're good. Yeah, keep going.
So like I figured out by selling candy that I could sell candy at variable costs. So I would go buy blow pops, and if you don't know what those are, they're just suckers, and they're different flavors. Yeah. And the best flavor was watermelon. The second best flavor was sweet apple, and then there was like cherry and a couple of other flavors. And I knew at different times of the day I could get more money for blow pops. And so like I would buy a box of 72 or 144 of them for like, I don't know, 10, 12 bucks. But I found that after lunch, I could get $3 for a strawberry blow pop that I paid like 25 cents for. But I also knew that people didn't care for the sweet apple ones. So I would discount those to get rid of them to get them out of inventory. And then I moved into atomic fireballs. I moved into all sorts of different candy. And then I got in trouble because I was selling more candy than the school was. And they thought that I was selling drugs. And so that ended my career. So this whole time, you know, growing up as a kid, I've been around entrepreneurs, been in the world of sales, doing paper routes. And I had an opportunity to go meet Jay at an event. And it was amazing. And so afterwards, he invited me to go to a class that he was holding. And it was like a 5-day class over Zoom. This was pre-COVID. And so it didn't have a training manual. So I spent 12 hours just typing up a training manual. I just sent it to him. Here, use it how you want. And this was 2019. And then I guess it was a pretty good training manual because they asked me, hey, do you want to do more of these? And so that's how the introduction started. So in the back end, it came for me just giving. I wasn't expecting anything. I was just like, this is something I do to make information easier for me to disseminate. If I want to get good at something, I take that concept and I figure out how do I teach it. So I wanted to master the information. And by me creating a workbook, I was able to master the information. And so a lot of times people find out, hey, Scott, you're taking this class. I know you're a massive note taker. Can I get your notes? So even in John Benson's Copy Pro class, people wanted the notes that I was taking because like I just the way that I put all the information. And so it evolved from me working in the back scenery of doing stuff with Jay to them asking, hey, would you mind jumping on with one of our other accelerators? That's what I do, is I teach the classes, I teach the content. So Jay will do training, it'll be video, and then I'm there for Q&A. I'm there to help. Hey, here's how you put the strategy together. So I've studied anything under persuasion. I've studied rhetoric, propaganda, sales, persuasion, body language, decision making. I've got a master's in business with a minor in marketing. I've read tons of books. I've spent more money than I care to admit on classes and training. And so all that information goes into the training that I did.
That's so cool. And so the connection with Jay really just came from you guys meeting that one time.
Yeah. And then me putting in the effort. I gave him the workbook because I said, hey, look, if somebody wants to use us, I don't care. It was done. It was done for me to be better at what I do, but I figured that I would share it and say, here you go. So there's a couple of other people that I've done that for, and I've got a flight tomorrow that's 5 hours. And on the flight tomorrow, I plan on putting a couple of work guides together for different people and saying, use it how you want. I want to be better at this information. I'm going to put it together anyway. And it's not like I can sell it. So give it to whoever you want, charge for it. I don't care.
So smart. This is actually something that's worked for me a lot in the past. I'll do it with videos a lot of the time, where like the one connection for me, the one that really, really changed my life and my career, especially. And there was a couple leading up to this, but the one that really changed things was Joe Polish. Okay. And yeah, of course. Right. And, for Joe, him and I had this like 6-month back and forth over Instagram where we would just chat here and there or whatever. And I was like an entrepreneur barely a year at this point. So I was like listening to the I Love Marketing podcast and et cetera, et cetera. And in one of those messages that got shot back and forth, he mentioned something about genius recovery. And I was like, oh, interesting. I didn't even realize Joe had this passion project. So I look at it and it's obviously a self-funded passion project. Like it didn't have a lot of attention on it. And I was like, well, he's probably done stuff for this. So I scoured YouTube and found a cool interview with him and 𝐸𝐸 when they were talking about addiction recovery. Downloaded the interview off of YouTube, sliced it up for him, captioned it, etc. And then I just shot it over to him and was like, hey, I just sent you some cool videos. They're all like edited, captioned, ready to go. It's just some stuff you can put on the Genius Recovery social for when for whenever, because I know that this probably doesn't get a lot of attention. I look at my phone like an hour later, I've got 8 voice messages. He's recording another one. And I've like listened to the first one and he's like, okay, cool. I really like this first one. What do you think about this kind of a caption? So I'm typing, I'm like, this is great. Keep it coming. And he was like, yo, are you around? Can you just jump on Zoom with me right now? And I was like, yeah, of course. So we jump on.
Is there a faster word?
I'm like,
than
no,
yes?
I'm busy. Yeah, no.
Sorry, Joe.
Yeah, and so he's like, okay, cool. So we jump on Zoom and he's like, look, I don't know what this looks like, but like, let's do something with this. And I was like, okay, cool. So, and he was so kind. He basically brought me into Genius Network, which is this high-level mastermind. And it completely changed my network, my business. And he was just, I think he knew he was helping me. He was just incredibly kind. And we just did some stuff for Genius Recovery. But that approach I find is so incredibly effective. So I'll do it with videos a lot for people, even though it's not my main business. Whenever I meet cool people or I'm sort of like, you know what, I don't feel like working today, I'll go and find cool stuff on YouTube. That's like somebody I want to connect with. I'll slice up videos for them, caption it, and just sort of be like, oh, hey, this is a really good thing I found of you. And feel free to give it to your team so they can post it on social or whatever. And it's kind of what you're saying. It's just this really easy in where all of a sudden you've made yourself really valuable in that relationship, and it's really considerate. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just a dynamite strategy for building a great network.
I have this strategy for connecting with people, and I learned this probably 9 years ago. I go to Hawaii a lot.
Okay.
When I say a lot, I mean like 4 to 6 times a year.
Yeah.
And so I always look for somebody I want to connect with. And so what I do is I will go to the Walmart, Costco, and I'll buy up a bunch of Hawaiian chocolate.
Yeah.
And then I'll buy up coffee. And I will get flat rate shipping boxes. And I will stuff this box in. And let's say it's an author. I'll write them a note and say, hey, I really enjoyed your book. Have a box of sunshine. Love, Scott. And I will not put any contact information. I will make it just like, if you want to connect with me, you have to find me.
Right.
And so like I use my full name. I use Scott Sylvan Bell for anything, because in California, there's like 22 Scott Bells.
Right.
There's a book author named Scott Bell. there is an artist named Scott Sylvan, and I'm like, I better make sure that I distinguish myself. So I write out my full name, Scott Sylvan Bell, and I've got 2,600 YouTube videos and a podcast. I'm not hard to find. And so, the people will get back to me and they're like, hey, is there anything I could do for you? I'm like, nope, maybe an interview for a podcast. Yeah. I just want to deepen the relationship. And so I took that idea and that concept and I put it towards building out things for people, not expecting anything in return. If I get nothing in return, I am okay with it. In fact, there's times where I don't ever hear back from the people and I'm like, no big deal.
Yeah.
I don't do it for something. I do it to just put the goodwill forward and say, here's something you can use. If you use it, great. If you don't, okay. It helped me either master my thing or open a connection.
No, I agree. It's honestly, it's such an easy way to connect with cool people, but it really does have to be done from this place of indifference. One thing I find where people can, where connections cannot work out so well is when someone has a short-term mindset. Oh, I've only got 5 minutes with this person. I've got to get everything I can out of them, etc. Like anyone that, I mean, I have an awesome network and a lot of them came from just being like, hey, I don't care if I work with this person ever. This is just somebody I want in my corner 20 years from now. It came from a very long-term mindset. And I think you have the same approach.
Yeah. Yeah, like I learned this from my dad. You can't give with the expectation of getting something for it. If you get something, fantastic. If you don't, move on with your life.
Yeah. I love that. Okay, cool. Well, where can people find you?
Where can they find me?
Yeah.
Are you ending? Are you like, we're done? We got to go?
Well, I don't know. I was thinking I don't know. Let's keep going.
I've got 30 more minutes if you want it.
This is true. Okay. So actually, yeah, good point. Okay. So you are an expert when it comes to persuasion, sales, simplification of complex concepts. That's a huge skill set. What would you say are the most common mistakes that you see when people are doing sales in general?
Got it. I'm gonna give you an answer you probably would never consider. Okay. So you and I meet.
Right.
I'm selling a cell phone, just the nearest thing that I have to me. As we talk, your brain is picking up my patterns, the way that I speak, my vocal inflection, my tone. You're picking up my body language. And so what will happen is right now, even as we're speaking, you're looking at me and like, how can I figure out Scott? And you're looking at me as a puzzle. Okay. And you're taking this and you're translating into it like I'm building out the way that he acts right now. I'm building out a pattern of things that he does. And then what happens is in the sales process, there's a crossover point, there's a flip where it goes from, hey, I'm Scott and I'm this cool guy to, hey, I'm Scott and I am a salesperson. And so there is a shift in body language. There's a shift in vocal pitch and tone. And for some people, they speed up the process. For other people, they slow it down. And so what ends up happening is it becomes a case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So one of the most common mistakes that I see salespeople make is they are a rapport building monster and machine up until the point where they're talking about money. And then they turn into this closing machine where they're like, you have to buy today and you have to do all these things and you have to make it happen. And what happens is the program that you knew for 5, 10, 15 minutes, 25, 40 minutes was like, I really like Scott. He's a fun guy too. Where did this person come from? Or women are more intuitive about this than men. And I have no problem saying that. Like the way that women are programmed to pick up things for kids, they hear that change in the voice. And I spent time doing a lot of in-home sales. I've been in 16,000 houses roughly. Okay. And so like the rule in in-home sales is the woman makes all the decisions. It's just the way that it is because it's just easier.
Yeah.
Honey, what do you want to do? I don't know. You decide. You pick the person that you want. And so a lot of times women pick up on this better than men do. So they're like the things in their stomach go off. They're like, you are not the same person. So it ends up with an objection. And so the salesperson goes, objection, all I have to do now is discount. Well, what it was is they lost that sale way previous by being two different people on the call. You can only be the same person. So I spent a lot of time training salespeople, and that's probably the biggest mistake that they make, next to talking too much and not asking enough questions.
That's fair. That's a really, it honestly is an art of, it's kind of like the art of accepting yourself in a way. Like, and I think everybody, you know, if you've been in sales or entrepreneurship, et cetera, we all go through this, where the first year of me being in entrepreneurship was so exhausting because I felt like I had to be this one person with clients and on calls and et cetera. And then I could chill out, and then I could whatever. And it just it's just self-knowledge. And you just get to the point where you're like, I'm okay if somebody doesn't like me. That's okay. Like, I'm not for everybody, where you're just like, oh, I can just be myself. I can be the same person on a call with Jay Abraham as I am talking to my mom, as I am, et cetera. Like, I can just have a through line of me. And it's exhausting when you're changing all the time.
I warn people. I'm like, you understand what you're getting when you meet with me. I'm black and white. I say inappropriate things. My brain just does not function into not doing that. I warned in the beginning. I can't spell. I can't punctuate. So if you see something that comes from me, you're like, Scott, that is the longest run-on sentence in the world. And I'll say, hey, Ella, here's the thing. When I was in college and I graduated from high school, I went back and I took remedial English.
Right.
So I took English with people who couldn't speak English. And the teacher was like, how do you have an MBA and not know this? I'm like, my brain does not pick this up. And so I gave up. I like, now I'm getting better because of how much I type and how much I work on content. But like, literally, my brain doesn't pick it up. So I warn people. One, I'm loud, I'm obnoxious, I love tacos. I will make you laugh, but there's probably going to be a point where I just piss you off. And it's not done on purpose, it's who I am. And so, you know, it's weird. I'm going to give you an analogy. In dating, you don't really know who you're dating for the first 3 to 6 months because that person's on guard and they're trying to be something that they're not. So when I'm dating, I warn people, I'm like, look, who you're meeting today is who I am. I don't pretend to be something I'm not. I make noise. I sometimes curse a lot like a sailor. I can't spell. I say what I'm thinking. I get frustrated in traffic. I'm not a perfect person.
Right.
And I think sometimes that freaks people out. I think a lot of people are like, fantastic. I finally get to meet somebody who's real.
No, 100%. Yeah. And it really is just, you kind of learn to like yourself. And when you like yourself, it just starts being okay when other people don't like you. And you're kind of like, well, all right. And it's not this crushing thing anymore.
I don't have to pretend to be something that I'm not. Like, I've got custom suits. I've got 300 ties. I love dressing up. I've got the shoes, I've got the suits, I've got the ties. But you know what I love more than dressing up? Wearing aloha shirts. So like, I get asked to events and they're like, Scott, here's the dress code. It's aloha shirts. I'm like, I mean, it's suits and ties. I'm like, I don't do that. I've got the suits, I've got the ties. But like, if you want the real me, you want me to be comfortable. You want me to be relaxed. You want me to be who I am. You want me to wear a suit and tie? 50-50, I might do it, probably not.
And it honestly kind of makes you more interesting. Like, that's what I've had at events and stuff. You're sort of like, oh, who's that person? Like, it makes you more interesting in a sea of suits and ties.
So I'll tell you, I got a strategy. Any event that I go to, I try to sit in the front row. One, because I got a slight form of ADD, and I like, if I'm sitting in a back row and somebody reaches into their purse, I'm like, what are they? Do they have Snickers in there? What's in the purse? And then I'm not paying attention to the speaker. And then the other thing is like, I'll go to an event in a shirt just like this, and people will tag me. They're like, hey, Scott, are you at that event? Because I see an aloha shirt and a bald dude. That's got to be you. It's my signature move.
Yeah. No, I love it. That's awesome. Cool.
So if there was a strategy that I just shared in here as a way to persuade, is one, be who you are, but also explain away some of your faults. I don't walk through the door like, hey, nice to meet you, I got problems. I you know, a couple minutes in, I share, here's one of the things that I struggle with. And if people are like, how's your day? I'm like, today's okay. There's some things going on that, there's some things that are going great. And I do it for the reason that everybody fakes and like everything's perfect. And you meet entrepreneurs and we all know nothing's perfect. Over there is a fire. Over there, there's a party. And that party happens less than the fire in most instances, especially in startup.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. What do you think is one of the key ways that people screw it up when it comes to persuasion in general?
Too much rapport.
Too much rapport.
Yeah, like they're trying too hard.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So like you and I can talk. We have a lot of similar people. We've had pretty good rapport throughout this process.
Yeah.
But I'm not trying to be something that I'm not. And I'm not like, well, do you know this person? Do you know that person? Do you know this person? You know that person?
Yeah.
When you have a true connection with people, you can feel it.
Yeah. Interesting. So just trying too hard to create.
Yeah, because like up until 2012, I pretty much read every book there was on sales.
Right.
I mean, like the old ones, the new ones, and then I got bored. Like, you've mastered something when you're bored with conversations about it, or you're bored reading content about it, or you're bored studying it. And there's so much emphasis on rapport that it actually becomes a point where it's a detriment, because if I build too much rapport with you and I'm going to sell something to you, then we become too close of friends. And then you say something like, I'm not ready to buy. And then like, me and Ella are friends. And now I'm scared to ask her for the business because we're not going to go fishing together. And we're not going to go to the basketball game together. And we're not going to go shoe shopping together. And then we're not going to go purse shopping together, whatever thing that you do. So it starts playing tricks on your brain. And there are people out there that can fake rapport. There are people out there that can break themselves apart. But at the end of the day, from working with as many salespeople as I have, there's that emphasis on you got to be friends with the person. But then there's the point where the brain goes, now that I'm friends, I can't ask them for the business.
That's a really good point.
And then two, on the part of the buyer, they're like, this guy or this girl, this dude or this chick, we're friends. I'm probably going to tell them that I don't want to do it. Because the whole time that someone's in a sales presentation, there's two mindsets running. There's the mindset of like, hey, I'm a salesperson, and on the horizon, I've got this deal to close. And the buyer's looking back towards the salesperson, and they're like, on that horizon, I'm looking for every reason why I don't have to do this today. And one of those reasons that crosses over in the middle is because now we're friends.
Yeah.
I'm in no way am I saying don't build rapport. In no way am I saying, hey, don't have that interaction. But I am saying there's a point where it tricks your brain and says, this isn't a sales process, this is a friendship. Which there's nothing wrong with that as long as you're getting the business done.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. That's a really good point. I haven't heard that answer before.
Yeah, I've got a lot of them. Like, you know, part of the job as a corporate trainer is to actually ride shotgun with salespeople. So when somebody's struggling, that's my specialty. You got a closer who has lost their way and they can't figure it out, and like studied a ton of psychology. You and I have a common friend, Fern Kaslow.
Oh, Dr. K, I love her.
And
I was actually
love Dr.
just
K.
texting with her this morning. Yeah.
Yeah. Her and I talk a lot, a ton. And so we talk about, because she's a performance coach. And you know, her information crosses over with mine. And here's me trying to categorize information and say, hey, how do I help somebody out? How do I make them perform better? And so I've specialized with when salespeople are struggling, especially top performers, getting them back on track. And there's common trends that will cause somebody to fail, right? So like, here's something that'll help your listeners or your viewers out. Common trends are positive and they're negative. Common trends: I got a boyfriend, I got a girlfriend, I got a husband, I got a wife. I got a house, I got a car, I got a pool. I'm going on vacation. I got a pet. So like, those are the biggest distractions in life. Now, reverse them. I lost a boyfriend, lost a girlfriend, lost a husband, lost a wife, lost a pet, lost a house, lost a car. And so like, I tend to visualize everything that I can do. So I can say, hey, here's how you visualize it. So if you put that on a bell curve, salespeople, as they start out, the bell curve is long and the top is very low and skinny. And as people get better at what they do with persuasion and influencing people, the ramp up to get going to closing deals is short. The plateau is long, and then it drops off. And so there's always some event that caused somebody to say, here's why I'm struggling. And when I work with salespeople, it's typically for 3 days. Okay. And so on the first day, that person's trying to like, do I trust Scott? Is he a smart guy? Can he really help me? By the second day, salespeople and even entrepreneurs will pull me aside and they're like, hey, can I ask you something personal? And it's like, it takes like sometimes 8 hours to 12 hours for someone to open up and say, here's the real struggle that I'm facing. Here's the real problem that I'm having. I just don't have the money that I need. Okay, it happens. It's normal. I'm fighting with my wife. I'm fighting with my husband. Okay, that's normal. It happens. I'm having a problem with management. So anytime that there's a big change that happens mentally that gives that shift, usually is one of the things that causes a salesperson to fall and really struggle.
That's really cool. I'm gonna like listen back to that. That was yeah, that's a really cool way to put it.
Yeah, so like look for major changes, major milestones in a life is always going to be something that sets an entrepreneur or a salesperson off to deviate, because like now the focus has changed. And it is a focus issue. And then it's also a self-talk issue. Like there could be one event where you start to struggle or I start to struggle. I'll point at myself. I'll make this really easy. So like the listener's like, hey, Scott's a human being. When I lost my dad, it was very impactful in my life because my dad and I talked every morning at 10 o'clock in the morning. And there's times where I go to grab my phone, and this is almost 4 years ago, that I go to grab my phone and I'm looking at my phone and I'm like, hey, I wish I could just talk to my dad for 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And so there's times like if I got to talk to somebody before and it's like 10 o'clock and I go to reach for my phone, sometimes it gives me a negative feeling. And I got to remind myself, hey, look, it's normal. And so I'm constantly telling myself what is normal and what's weird. I lose a deal because I'm not a perfect closer. I still miss deals. I lose a deal and I'm like, you know what? I'm having a tough time. I literally talk this out loud. But you know what? This is normal. This is part of the cycle. And I'll draw out a bell curve and I'll like, where am I at on the bell curve? Am I on the climb, in the plateau? Am I in the decline? If I'm in the decline, why is it? What changed in my life?
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. All right. What didn't I ask you that I should have asked you?
Ooh, that's a really good question. You know what? There's counterintuitive ways to close deals.
Okay.
And this is something that I've worked with a lot. And so from working with salespeople and working with top performers, you know, I've watched them work. I've taken notes. Not every time that somebody tells you an objection does it mean that you need to go the direction that most sales trainers are going to tell you. So let's say that we're working on a process in Ellis, you say, hey, Scott, I want to think about it. You know, and everybody's like, well, what do you need to think about? Well, everybody's got a devil and an angel on their shoulder. And if you're around little kids around the age of 2, you tell them to do something and their brain goes, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to do it. So like, you know, especially entrepreneurs, if I tell you, hey, Ellie, you have to do this, your brain goes, no, I don't. I don't have to. So like sometimes when people are like, hey, Scott, I got to think about it. My answer is good. I hope you do. I think you should. And then I pause for a second. That little devil on the shoulder that's saying no goes, what? Wait a minute. And so it's like a count of about 5 seconds, 2001, 2002, 2003. And then I give them 2 or 3 reasons why it's a bad idea and go, okay, but that decision's up to you. And then I leave it alone and it starts messing with their brain. And it usually comes back that they're like, you know what, I never really thought about that. Go ahead. So I address the I want to think about it, and I let them take it and run with it for a few minutes. And then I pull it back and say, here's why all the problems that you're going to have with thinking about it. It's just counterintuitive way to get people to do stuff. Is it an advanced move? Probably. If I was brand new at sales, it's not something that I would try. You know, it does take some work.
No, that can't work if it's at all awkward.
Yeah, and so like, I have a friend, Deb Cole, and so this is going to relate to this story. Yeah. In 2014, my house got broken into, and I was in a funk. Like literally, the night before, I had finished a book on sales. I had finished a book on sales training, and I left my computer out. I left at 6 o'clock in the morning. I came back in the evening, and my front doors kicked in, and my cat's running around the house, and I was in a funk. And so this is right around the beginning of the ice bucket challenge. So like this is that time frame. The Ice Bucket Challenge came out.
All right.
So Deb Cole and I are texting back because she never talks on the phone. So we're texting back and forth. And she says, Scott, I know you have YouTube videos. You have like 300 of them right now. I dare you, come up with 100 videos. I was like, game on, 100 videos. So I come up with this list to do 100 videos. And I go, I did 100 videos in a day. Now, at that point, daily vlogging was not a thing. Nobody did the daily vlogging. And some guru came out and said, there's no way in the world that you can go for 100 days in a row. And I'm like, prove you wrong, I did it. So I said, what if I went for 200 days in a row? Because somebody says you can't do 100, I could probably do 200. So I did 200 days, and then I did 300 days. I went for 5 years, 9 months, and 3 days for putting up a YouTube video every day. I missed 2 when my dad died. Like I mean, I asked for some grace, but I missed 2 days when my dad died. And the reason I bring this up is, if you're going to be a presenter, you have to be able to present in every type of form: audio, video, face-to-face. And so prior to March 2020, most people would not get on a camera. Most people did not like the sound of their voice. But then Zoom changed all of that. So if there's anything that I can encourage your listeners, your viewers to, is to get really good at talking in every format. You know, when Clubhouse came out, it kind of made people like, okay, I'm okay with my voice. You know, it was the addition. And so to take that step out and say, what do I struggle with? Do I struggle with speaking to people? Do I struggle with, you know, having video? You know, the video really does add 10 pounds. My face is super round on video. It's not this round in real life. It's a little bit skinnier, right? More almond. I'm used to the way that my voice sounds from editing so many videos.
Right.
And so if there's anything that I can encourage as a piece of information is shoot a ton of video content. And your first one's going to be your worst one. I look at my first YouTube video and I'm like, this sucks. This is like 2009, 2010.
Yeah.
And now I go to events and someone is like, will you shoot a testimonial? And I have rules about testimonials. If I don't believe in the product or service, I won't shoot it. If I do believe it and I do think it's going to help somebody, I will. So I was at an event in Austin 2 weeks ago. And they're like, hey, can you do a testimonial? I'm like, absolutely. I love the person who's putting this event on. I'll do a testimonial for you. And they're like, do you need any prep time to do the video? I'm like, what are you going to ask me? And they said, here's the 5 questions. Like, prep time's done. Let's shoot a video. You know, when you get good at something, it's second nature to go at it and put some effort towards it.
I love that. All right. And now, where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
Okay. How-to-sell.live.
Awesome. How-to-sell.live. We'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. You know, I tore down my website that I had before and I'm adding content to it. It's not anywhere that it used to be, but on YouTube, I've got 2,600 YouTube videos on Scott Bell Consultant. Got a podcast, the How to Sell Show. Got 200 episodes, 170 episodes up on that.
Love it. All right. And then he hangs out on social sometimes too. Clubhouse, Instagram. You can find Scott Sylvan Bell, right?
Yeah, that's what I go under for everything.
For everything. All right. Well, again, thank you so much for being here. This has been a fantastic conversation.
Thank you. I appreciate you bringing me on.
Oh, absolutely. And everybody, thank you for listening. We will see you next week.
This broadcast is brought to you by WINJECT Studios. We are an all-in-one educational platform for podcasters that revolutionizes how hosts leverage content to increase engagement with listeners, downloads, and income. We come together to focus on community, collaboration, and collective impact. For more information on how you can interact directly with our hosts, access exclusive live content with offers you can't get anywhere else from our official partners, join our purpose-driven community by visiting www.winject.com. If you're ready to build a career doing what you love, then we're ready to see you there.